What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Infertile Millennial. So today, I did not plan on recording a podcast episode, but we got hit with like 7 or 8 inches of snow last night. Everything's closed. It's Saturday, so what better way than to cozy up with an all-new episode? And today, I'm really excited because I actually found a new Reddit board that I never knew existed, and I connect very closely with it because it's actually a board that is for sort of where I'm at in my fertility journey, which is child-free or childless after infertility. It's something my husband and I are considering. We've been on this journey for 10 years, and we just don't really know if we want to do any more treatments or if we want to just continue life child-free. So I'm not sure if this board is going to be triggering for some of you or not. Maybe I'm hoping to be like a little bit enlightening, especially because I know that it's really scary to think about the future and to think, what if I never get pregnant or we never end up having children? I felt like this board had a lot of really great insight on many outlooks, right? This isn't all just sunshine and rainbows, but I thought it would be interesting not only for myself just to get a little bit more clarity and to see things from others' perspective, but also for those of you who are considering no longer trying, stopping treatment, and living life without children. So without any further ado, let's get into it. I think I've got about 8 different stories, and then at the end of today's episode, I asked what advice you guys wanted, and we are going to do an answer to an advice column. And the question was, which I thought was fitting for this, how to know when it's time to move forward. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so the description for this board on Reddit is titled, is a community to celebrate the freedoms and share the struggles of living child-free after infertility. Please note this board is only for those who have tried unsuccessfully to conceive, stopped any medical treatment or efforts to adopt, and are embracing a child-free life. So I really like it. They're basically just saying, please don't post about your fertility treatments because it's specifically for people who've chosen to stop or are considering stopping and share their stories. So I actually wanted to start on a lighter note. This was actually, this story made me giggle. So this one is titled, 12-year-old niece has more tact than most adults. So here's the story. I took my niece shopping today, and lining up for the checkout, we were surrounded by several different young kids screeching/having tantrums. My niece looks around at the younger children despairingly and turns to me to say, "Aren't you glad you..." Then pauses, thinks about what she's going to say, and continues, "Have such a well-behaved niece." She obviously had been about to say the classic, "Aren't you glad you don't have kids?" but managed to have enough insight and tact at 12 years old to think about how that comment might sting for me, and changed her remark within one breath. What a legend. I was so proud of her. More than I can say for a lot of adults when it comes to thoughtless comments around infertility. For real though, reading that story, it is amazing to see how children are easy to pick up more than an adult on, hey, maybe I shouldn't say this. So good for her, and I really appreciate that she was quickly about to, change what she was going to say, because we've all been there. We've all been about to say something to someone, and in the middle of the sentence realize, what am I doing? What am I saying? Turn it around. So good for her at 12 years old. I just feel like that's great. That's great that she was able to do that, and at a very young age, she's learning a little bit about empathy and compassion, so good for her. Moving along to story number 2. Title, opted out of the fertility complex 1 year ago today. Things I've learned. Hey, lovely people. I haven't been active on this sub for a while as I've been distancing myself from our old life of infertility and everything that comes with it. But I wanted to do an update given this community gave us so much. And for anyone who, like me, found themselves in this sub curious about what life might be like on the other side. 1 year ago today, we looked at our life and realized we were so deep in the infertility machine that we had hadn't even really noticed the wreckage around us. We were completely burnt out. I was having a nervous breakdown. We were in the midst of a surrogacy arrangement, and no amount of money being thrown at the problem was getting us any closer to this seemingly unattainable dream of baby. Calling it quits was simultaneously the easiest and hardest decision I've ever made. We were on a high for about a month, splashing all our surrogacy money on living it up and having the kind of fun we hadn't had in years. But my grief was waiting. It wasn't about not having a baby, but the accumulated trauma of years of miscarriages and medical PTSD was still with me. You can only compartmentalize something for so long, I guess. It all came to a head, and I went to a hospital for a month. It was healing. I got stabilized, and I'm grateful to have had access to the care that I needed. We realized where we were living. We were forever going to be the odd couple out without children. So we decided to move to another city where the child-free life is more normal and there's a bigger community of adults wanting connection. It was an excellent decision. It gave us space, and the change of scenery and routine was really helpful. It's been a big year of learning and reconnecting with myself, so I thought I would share some of the things I've noticed. 1. Time is your friend. A year ago, I couldn't be around a pregnant person without feeling like I was going to break down. Things don't feel so raw anymore. It might pop up from time to time if I'm feeling vulnerable, but just be patient because it does get easier. I definitely connect with that just as someone, not even talking about stopping treatment, but just being on your journey for so long. There are things that you sort of learn to cope with better, from when you were in the beginning of your journey versus a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, however much longer. So I will say that I can relate to that even as someone who hasn't quite decided. 2, no matter what your circumstances or how unrealistic your odds are of procreating or how much trauma you've had, people will still feel the need to hold out hope for you. Even if you're perfectly happy child-free and no longer want a child, some people will want to force this dream on you and come up with solutions. Be prepared for this. Have your offhand jokes to disarm them when it comes up. Again, this hurts less in time, but it is very frustrating and invalidating. I can 100% see that. I feel like people can't fathom you not having kids, so that's where all that toxic positivity comes up when you say you're struggling with infertility. And they're always going to say, this is going to happen for you because it happened for them. So they can't imagine when someone has said, you know what, I feel like I've done all I can. We're no longer trying. We're not doing treatments. Can't get pregnant without treatments. Someone's always going to say, oh, it'll happen for you when you least expect it. I can see someone saying that. So that I can also understand. 3, being child-free not by choice can be isolating. Your friendships might change. Not everyone can hold space for you as you are. I typically have friends who either went through infertility and have a baby or are child-free by choice. So none can ever truly understand having the choice taken from you. So make room for the people who at least try. I like that as well. I think going through life, even when it doesn't come to having children or it does or whatever, you are going to notice that through life, there are certain friendships that will last a lifetime, but there are some friendships that you just start to realize we're different people and we don't understand each other. So the friendship either drifts away or it does change. So there's always going to be evolving pieces. So acknowledge and hold room for the people who at least do try to understand you and support you. And yeah, I like that. 4, not having children forced me to really evaluate what I want for my future. It felt like suddenly my plans were ripped up and I had to start working out who I am and what I want. This can be daunting, but it's also super exciting. You have a freedom seldom experienced. And that is something that infertility has forced me to do as well, is really learn who I am as a person, which I appreciate. And I know some of you might say, that feels like a look on the, bright side or a silver lining. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying that this experience has forced me to do that. And I'm turning 30 this year, I actually feel really good and confident of the woman that I am. And I feel like I know who I am and nothing can change that. So I understand that as well. What number were we at? 5. I didn't expect to be so put off by children, but here we are. I don't know if it's my brain protecting itself, but how did I never notice how loud and messy they are? They are cute, but my God, I wake up so often and feel nothing but gratitude for my peaceful life. I'm working really hard not to become that person trying to convince all my friends to not have kids so that we can be rich and travel together. That again, I think I've always been a little off-put by other people's kids, even while struggling. So that I can also kind of understand as well. And it's about having a little bit of gratitude, every day, waking up and saying, man, am I so glad I got to sleep in today. It doesn't distract from the fact that, of course, we'd love to have had the experience to have kids, but I will tell you, gratitude does go a very long way. And then 6, get a therapist. I feel like this is advice for everyone, everywhere, in all circumstances. Even when you make peace with it, what you endured to get to that point is still under the surface. I could not agree with that more. I am so glad that I did therapy when I did. And in fact, I'm sure it's been almost a year since I stopped my last session after being in it for years. There's always time to go back and check in. There's always stuff under the surface that might bubble up later, even when you feel like you've gotten through it all. There could still always be something there. But yes, you can't move through life. And first of all, I just need to let everyone know fertility treatments and infertility in general is traumatic. Miscarriage is traumatic. And if you don't talk to someone about it and work through your emotions, there is going to be a lot of stuff there that needs to be worked through. Don't play it down and say, it wasn't that bad, other people have it worse. It can still be that bad, and even if it isn't that bad, there's still something to work through, and it is important. So please always put your mental health first, and don't listen to other people who say it's not that bad, because it is bad. It is hard. Go getting therapy, there's nothing wrong with that, and I really hope that everyone is able to work through all of their trauma and acknowledge that this is a lot. Let's end this person's post with the ending. A year ago, I thought my world was ending, but I can honestly say we are the best we've been in years. We have a holiday booked every month. We have an amazing social life, a great community, and the future feels really exciting. I'm coming to terms with the fact that the fantasy of having a baby was really just that, a fantasy. I'm not sure the real life day-to-day of parenting would have allowed me to be the best version of myself. I feel like I was conditioned to think I needed to have a purpose, which couldn't be further from the truth. I hope whatever stage you're feeling supported and know that you will be okay. So I chose that one because I liked that. That was someone who has made the decision to stop, and this is their 1-year outlook. Granted, I know it sounds like maybe they financially have the option to do a lot of extra stuff. So easier said than done when you're in a different financial position. Let's move along to another 1-year post-decision. So let's move into story number 3. All right, title 1-year post-decision. December 21st, 2021 was the day I made the decision to stop trying. So I'm a little late on the 1-year anniversary, but close enough. I know everyone's journey is different, and I know we're all in different stages of this path to a new life and future, but I wanted to share in the hope that it'll be a light at the end of the tunnel for anyone who's currently where I was a year ago. After 4 failed Clomid/trigger/IUI cycles in 2021, I couldn't take it any longer. I was in a deep pit of depression and anxiety. My physical and mental health were suffering horribly, and I spent most days crying and eating my emotions. When we started the 4th cycle in November, I already knew it would be my last if it didn't work, but committing to following through on that decision was harder than I thought it would be. I was done. I couldn't take anymore. But there was a deep well of guilt over giving up. I felt like I must be weak. So many women do this for years, and I could hardly handle one. I worried I was letting my husband down, even though he told me over and over that he was fine without kids if that's how things turned out. I felt like I was somehow letting all those people down who had assured me that it would work out eventually. Once I managed to let go of the guilt and embarrassment over quitting, I knew it was the right choice for me. But being the right choice and being easy aren't the same. I looked at my life and felt like I should be happy with it, even without children, because I'm very privileged, but I wasn't happy. So 2022 became the year of finding happiness. The biggest thing I learned is that happiness isn't a destination, it's an ongoing journey. I tried and failed at new hobbies and even found a couple that stuck. I traveled, I made new friends, and I worked hard on making my relationship with my husband stronger. It was hard at first because everything felt like a consolidation prize. Sure, I'm on vacation in Scotland, but it's only because my body doesn't work right and I'll never have kids. Ugh, the inner voice was killer. I got therapy, I got medicated, and I even got a life coach. And as the weeks and months went by, it got easier and easier. I started to focus on all the reasons it's probably a blessing for me to be child-free, and finally in November of 2022, I looked at my life and asked myself the question, if a genie could give you a baby right now, would you take it? And my honest answer was no. I don't know why I want to cry with that one. I'm getting a little bit teared up because I feel like that's kind of where I'm at in my journey, and it feels so freeing to feel that way. But anyways, let's finish the story. I still have some things to work on and new goals for 2023. It's a journey, not a destination, remember? If you're in the early stages, I promise it gets easier. Why does that make me so emotional? I don't know. Yeah, that post really hit me hard in my heart. And I hope if you're in the same spot right now, or maybe a little further back, these hit you in some way. I don't know. But anyways, let's move on to story number 4. All right, story number 4. Do you have children? During the week, I go to 5:15 a.m. Oh my gosh, this story I really liked. Okay, sorry, now I'm remembering this one. Okay. During the week, I go to 5:15 a.m. gym classes, and today, while at a later, because of the weekend, class, I got asked what time I go to bed. I said that I start to get ready for bed around 8, and people reacted with a, whoa, kind of way. Someone asked if I had children, which I took as implying that starting my bedtime routine that early wouldn't be possible if I did. I responded along the lines of, no, and I get all of the uninterrupted sleep I want. In the past, a question like this would have stung, but this morning I was really thankful to have a lifestyle where I can sleep, exercise, and take time for myself whenever I want, and have other people be envious of it. Put another way, you have to take and acknowledge the wins and progress when they show up, and today I did. I'm going to also read top comment because I believe top comment is what really solidified this story for me. Comment. That's great that the question didn't ruin your morning/day. I'm getting there, and if they press, I say I've had 6 miscarriages, and then they shut up and hopefully learn a lesson in boundaries. I'm learning to love my life again, enjoying the mornings, sleeping when I want, uninterrupted sex when we feel the mood strike, which is more often now that we're out of the temping and ovulation kit cycle. That's a new thought for me. People being envious of my vast amounts of free time. I've been jealous of their babies for so long, them being envious of my time is a nice perspective. I'm so glad you had a win today. Enjoy the rest of your uninterrupted weekend. I hope more wins are in store for you. So that was a really interesting perspective for me when I was reading that story, because I do like the idea of, when you're stuck in the infertility world, I get so many questions about how do I stop being jealous of other people's pregnancies, because I feel like I'm working so hard and it just seems like everyone's getting what I don't have, even though I'm working hard for it. And so the perspective is nice to think, I'm not going to lessen how good it is to have free time and to travel more and to be able to sleep in and go do what I want, because why should I be ashamed of having that? So I did like that perspective of, you know what, I'm going to brag a little bit about my free time, because you're right, I do have something that I'm like, why am I ashamed of having it? So that's why I really liked that post. Let's move along to story number 5. Title, Microaggressions, from parents towards non-parents. I don't know if microaggressions is the right word. I'm a person of color, and it just feels similar to racist/classist microaggressions to me. But does anyone else find that their relationship with people who are parents is just hard? Especially parents of young children. I feel like I can't share about my life openly with them because I often get judgy, bitter comments in return. An example, while chatting with a parent, I mentioned that I was having to do laundry more than usual lately. I will save you from the gross details, but my partner had a health issue and I was washing towels after each use while he was sick. In response, she rolled her eyes and said, "What, you think you have a lot of laundry?" She has 2 young kids. Another example. I have chronic health issues, which often give me insomnia. While chatting with other parents' friends, they notice I'm low energy and ask why, and I mention that I didn't sleep well the previous night. The conversation then turns to people commiserating about how their kid kept waking up the previous night, and then one of them says, "Oh, you have no idea what real tiredness is until you have kids." These are all social situations where people know that we have infertility. I'm sorry, what? So these people know that you have infertility and they're going to knock you down and say, you don't know what okay, whatever. I'm not even going to go there. I mean, I get that young parenthood is super stressful and they're probably in a mindset of exhaustion, but why can't people just listen and validate that non-parents experience hard things too? I'm just tired of trying to keep up relationships with friends and family who have young kids because of exchanges like these. I'm finding that my connection to people my age, who are mostly young parents, has become deeply unsatisfying. I've decided to focus my energy more on my single friends. Yeah, I feel like there is definitely a story or another episode in which we discuss, I think it was an Am I the Asshole story about saying I can be tired too without having kids. Gatekeeping, being tired is not just for people with kids. People have chronic health issues, all different types of things, stress, whatever. You having kids is not the sole only valid reason why someone can be tired. So I believe top comment does acknowledge this, so let me read that. Top comment. When I was a kid, I had a friend with a huge extended family. Every time one of the kids in our neighborhood shared anything they were proud of or happy about, she had a cousin who matched or surpassed it. Run fast? My cousin is faster. New toy? My cousin has that toy. Drew a cool picture? My cousin draws better. If someone had performed open heart surgery, she would have surely had a cousin who did the same thing, only better and blindfolded. Cousins were her trump card for everything. This is the adult version of the same thing. Nothing the childless do, good or bad, can compare to doing the same thing with children. Tired? You don't know what tired is till you have children. In love? You'll never truly understand love because you don't have children. Heck, I was once told that I was wrong to refer to myself and my spouse as a family because it was impossible to be a real family without children. These idiots are literally gatekeeping the human experience. They are not worth your time. Yeah, that was very well put. I feel like I'm always trying to find the best top comment or best comment to read to express far better than I could express how I feel about these. If you're watching on the video, this guy is now here because he won't stop barking. Will he? No, he won't. So he'll be here for the remainder of the episode. All right, let's get back. We're going to redo the story because you were barking the whole time, huh, buddy? This one is super good. This is what I've been talking about in past episodes about why you need to stop saying just adopt. This story is very eye-opening, and I hope that you share this to everyone you know who tells you to just adopt. Title: I went to an adoption info day. Everyone who says just adopt should have to sit through this. I should start by saying that I'm in Europe, not the US, so this is specific to my country. And I hope this is okay to talk about here. If not, my apologies, and I'll remove it. We finished up with IVF treatments just before Christmas, and we were more than a little heartbroken. I was never too sure about adoption, but thought it might be an option for us, so decided at least to look into it properly. Apparently, the first step is that you must attend an information session. It took 4 phone calls and 3 months to even get that organized. Little perspective for you guys. We went last week and it was somewhere between terrifying and heartbreaking. I won't go into details, but from the cost to the tiny success statistics, the tiny amount of countries we're even allowed to adopt from, to the amount of time it would take, and all the ways they will investigate our lives, to all that could go wrong with the process, then to be told that up to 80% of children could have some form of trauma from the whole process and or physical or mental difficulties. It was just too much to take. Plus, if either of us turned 45, we're no longer eligible to adopt at all. That's mind-blowing, you guys. So at 40 to 41 now, We could go through the whole process and still be childless and heartbroken at the end. If someone could tell me that it'll take X years and cost X money and it'll work, I might be able to actually consider it. But everything up to now has been so trial and error, honestly, I just can't take any more uncertainty. Part of me feels guilty for not being able to go through that to try to save a child, but it just feels like too much. It's just not something anyone who has a biological child ever has to think about, and then there would be all the regular stresses that biological parents do have to think about too. Next time you say, "Oh, you should just adopt to me," they're in for a serious bullocking. Sorry if this was a bit of a rant, I just needed to let it out in a safe space. So that story is obviously very enlightening for sure, but I actually did save either one really good comment or a couple comments, I'm not sure. So let's get into it. Comment. We first did a fair where we quickly learned the cost of private adoption, insane and not guaranteed, and that we were too old and too fat for most international programs. I hated the idea of having to sell myself to a potential birth mother, competing with everyone else looking for a baby. We were also told that we would have to look for our own birth mother for the best case scenario, to spread the word with friends and family and churches. We don't have a wide social circle, so that was out unless I wanted to hit up some random pregnant women in the street. So then we looked into adoption from foster care. It would be inexpensive and we'd be doing something good. We did a 2-day weekend training, and after the first day, I had a massive panic attack and told my husband I don't think I could do it. The stories they told were horrible. For example, if your child cuts your cat's ear off, you can't get mad and yell, and you have to deal with it calmly. Oh my God. We learned about behavioral issues, FASD. In our state, I think they said 80% of all adopted kids have some degree of FASD, which is oh my God. We knew kids in foster care had trauma, but had no idea that trauma can literally change your brain development. Sometimes issues are bigger than therapy can help. I know people do it, and people survive, and kids flourish in the right circumstances, but I have absolutely no idea how they get people to stick around after that first training. We almost didn't go back the second day. So yeah, just adopt. Trust me, I was open to it, but it's not easy. So, really good perspective and shows that it is not as simple as saying just adopt. There's definitely most instances are a lot more difficult. You know, I know there are people out there who do have easier times or are able to make things work, whatever, but it's just not for everyone and it's very difficult. So, and on top of that, remember that, yeah, adoption is really difficult, but when you go from having to do fertility treatments and having many pregnancy losses and you just went through years of difficult, hard things, it's very hard to want to buckle up for up to 4 more years of that with adoption. And honestly, you just have to put your mental health first. So let's move along to story 7. Title: A poignant but positive reminder that a child-free life can be valued by others. I went to a celebration of life the other day for a child-free woman in my community who died much too young, in her 60s. It was sad, but it was a beautiful, very well-attended service. It was nice to see what a vibrant, well-loved, valued, and integral part of our community she was and how much she will be missed. You could tell she was a really important part of many people's life and had a lot of good friends who cherished her. She had some brutal challenges in her life, but she had so much energy and passion, and she was involved in many areas of our community. She will really be missed. I guess I'm posting this as an antidote to all the news stories I read where the person who died always seems to be described as mother of 3 or father and grandfather, or some descriptor that seems to boil them down to whether or not they reproduced. This celebration of life was a reminder to myself and anyone else who reads this that society can and should view the lives of people without children as being equally valuable to the lives of people who are parents. So I really like that because I think that one of the fears that we go through when going through infertility is the fear of the unknown and the future and, you know, what is going to be our life if we don't have kids, because like I said, we always were taught growing up that that's what life is, and we're biologically programmed to want to have children, and it's hard to picture life without, and that anybody would care about you moving forward. And I think that's a good thing to see, a different perspective of basically that your life can be very valuable without having kids, because it is. You are more than just being able to reproduce. Moving along to story number 8. Title, Living Life. I'm struggling with the concept of living my life to the fullest because I'm childless. The issue is that I've always had social anxiety and some self-esteem issues, and I feel like this has held me back in pursuing interests, etc. I mostly see the same group of friends on weekends, and I have a couple of extracurricular things I do in the evenings during the week. To feel that I'm really living my life to the fullest, I would want to do so much more, but I don't see myself getting there. I feel that my life is so boring. How do I get to a place where I'm actively taking steps to have a more fulfilling life? Curious if anyone can relate how I'm feeling. So again, I think that's one of the biggest problems we have, aside from grieving never having the family we really wanted. There's also that problem of we're struggling to decide what are we supposed to be doing with our lives if not to have children. I know that's a big thing many people feel. So I actually saved multiple comments that I thought were very enlightening and hopefully that you will connect with. So comment number 1. What about having a child do you believe would solve these issues? It sounds as though you lack a sense of purpose and fulfillment, as well as needing to find confidence in yourself, and those things should not come from having a child. A life coach or therapist would be appropriate to talk to about these feelings, to help you identify tangible steps to take to address them. Personally, the things I wanted from motherhood, caring for another being, teaching a young person a sense of family, I have found in working with horses. I take care of my horse, I teach children lessons, and I have many people I love now. We call it your barn family, who share my passion for horses. This sense of purpose and passion has brought me a rewarding feeling of fulfillment to my life, and I don't feel the absence of my own child. If anything, I'm grateful for the freedom to pursue that goal. In identifying what my passion was, I envisioned what myself as a child wanted most, to be a horse trainer. I knew from the moment I could walk and talk that I was horse crazy and wanted to do amazing things with horses. Now that I have a horse I trained from the wild, taught her tricks and ride bareback/bridleless, it's like the ultimate fantasy my child self had. Perhaps connecting with your inner child will lead you toward the things you want to do with your life. I understand that comment, but it's difficult when looking back as a child myself. I remember wanting to mother, and I had baby dolls, I had Build-A-Bears, my Barbies were always having babies. I definitely always had a sense of, but I wanted to mother something, and there was always that instinct. So me looking back, I never knew what I wanted to do with a career, but I knew that I wanted to be a mom. So that comment is a little bit difficult because looking back at your inner child, well, that is one of the things, and I think a lot of you can relate to that for sure. Obviously, having my fur babies, I get to mother a little bit, but it doesn't replace, having an actual child for sure. It's pretty close, but it's not quite, it doesn't fulfill that totally. So yes, I like the idea looking in at your inner child, and maybe it's more so not looking at what you wanted to be or do, but the things that you enjoyed, and then focusing more on those hobbies. Whether it's I really loved coloring in books all the time, and what can I do with that? I don't know. That comment to me, I get that. I think I'm more so related to the top of what about having a child do you believe would solve that? Because you have to think about it. A lot of moms out there, they have children and then they feel there's this they've lost the sense of themselves because they don't know who they are. So it doesn't necessarily, I think, fulfill you as a whole. So if it's really going about it looking into the fear of not having kids because you won't feel fulfilled, it's possible you wouldn't even if you had a child, I don't know. I hope you can understand what I'm saying in this. This whole theme of this episode is more so speaking to people who've already decided they're no longer going to be having children. I don't want this to come out that I'm doing any sort of shaming, blaming. I'm not saying this to people who are continuing to do treatments necessarily, because I understand that this could come off bad. I'm more so doing this episode as another outlook, or looking at it from a different perspective of people who have decided to no longer have children. Next comment. It sounds like you have an idea of the things you want to pursue, but your anxiety is keeping you from getting out and doing it. I know it's the most obvious advice, therapy, but if you've identified anxiety as the blocker, it would probably help to talk to someone. They might even recommend a medication. Aside from that, one thing I found weirdly helpful, and I don't expect this to be useful for everyone and could actually be potentially triggering, so I guess trigger warning, is reading about parenting. I've realized it's something I wanted to learn about, and not having a kid doesn't mean I can't learn about it. The reason I found it helpful is that I kind of need to parent myself. I've been able to recognize healthy ways of supporting the development of myself and others by learning about parenting. Yes, I'm an adult, but we are always developing. I can be gentle with myself and remind myself that it's okay to stumble, not fit in, etc. I feel like that could be very triggering for sure, reading about parenting. Interesting comment. More so I just liked them acknowledging, I think, if you're feeling anxiety, definitely talk to a therapist. It can help you get out there and learn how to be graceful with yourself, how to acknowledge when you're triggered about something, how to work through anxiety. I dealt with a lot of that after my pregnancy losses. So anyways, let's move on. This last story I thought was really important for people who you could be on your fertility journey, you could be done with infertility, living child-free, not by choice, whatever that may be. I think this can apply to everybody who is in this community. It's a lot to do with boundary setting and sticking to your boundaries. So this is a good example of a story of someone who knows what their boundary is but didn't stick to it, and what the outcome could potentially be. Title: Regretting effort I made to bond with in-laws. New baby this holiday season. My husband's side of the family welcomed their first grandchild this year, which has been tough on me to watch. We're close with his family, but not the couple, who have not made an effort to get to know us. When they started dating, they kind of estranged themselves from the family, and then came back in when the baby was announced so that everyone could be involved. Because I was going through my hysterectomy at the time and some intense health issues, I was pretty much left out of all things baby related. I have tried to put the emotional pain aside to support and love them, and made an effort to arrange a holiday dinner at my in-laws to give them a gift for the baby. Even though I prepared myself for it, the day ended up being completely overwhelming. For one thing, my mother-in-law confused us with the time we were supposed to arrive, and we were hours early, which meant sitting in my in-laws' home, which is essentially a shrine to their grandchild, and being forced to spend 4+ hours looking at photos and feigning enthusiasm before the couple and baby even showed up. Because we were only planned on being there a couple hours to eat and then do the long drive home, we ended up spending 6+ hours on this event, and I can't even describe the emotion and burnout I felt. Despite our efforts to bond with the couple, my husband and I failed to make anything more than mundane small talk about the baby with them. At dinner, the topic of their baby being the only one the family on both sides came up with. For some reason, my brother-in-law said that we would change our minds and suggested my husband and I would be having kids soon. We were so taken aback we asked him what he meant, and he said it would happen for us soon. What would happen? Everyone knows I had a hysterectomy. We've been perfectly open about it. I can't even begin to fathom what led him to say this, as though we were going to have an oopsie baby like they did. Unfortunately, the conversation was moving so quickly, we never got to address him saying that. At the end of the night, we were uncomfortably pushed into taking a picture with the baby, which then resulted in an extremely awkward conversation with my mother-in-law to please not share the photo on social media since I was uncomfortable, and I knew her grandbaby crazy friends would inevitably demand to know when we were going to give them grandbabies. When we left, they were busy taking more pictures with the baby, and the family barely said goodbye to us, even though we traveled hours to be there for the holiday festivities and had arranged the whole thing. On the way home, I had a huge realization that I was putting myself through absolute misery to make these people happy, even though they literally didn't care about my feelings or happiness. My husband and I talked, and we are going to do a better job setting boundaries and stop trying to make an effort when it isn't reciprocated. We are supposed to travel to my in-laws again for Christmas Day, and even though the couple and baby won't be there, I am done. I cannot do it. I can't sit there in their home surrounded by baby photos and toys and conversations revolving around grandbaby and pretend that I care. My health is very poor these days, and the drive itself is hard on me. I don't have enough emotional bandwidth to make it through another day with them. My husband is upset and says we committed to Christmas and have to go. At this point, I'm feeling ready to put my foot down and say we're not going. Is that cruel of me? I know we told them we would go, but I didn't expect to be such a bad place mentally and physically, and I doubt a week is enough time to recover. I don't want to send my husband by himself because I don't want to be alone on Christmas. My family's out of the picture, so not an option. I'm just feeling so utterly sick of the holidays and ready for this crappy season to be over. I 100% think she needs to put her mental health first. She already did just spend time with them right before Christmas, and I understand you feel bad letting people down, but this is one of those times when it's time to put your boundaries first. It is okay to miss one holiday with people one time. 100%, it is absolutely okay. She did a lot by trying to set up this dinner and, celebrating this baby, and I feel like to me that was a lot, and if she needs time, then that's what needs to happen. I think there's nothing wrong with setting a boundary, and it is okay to say, you know what, I'm not doing well with my mental health. And that doesn't just have to be with infertility. That could literally be with anything that you're doing in life in general. It can be anything. It does not have to be after, a trauma, a loss. It can literally just be like, you know what, I'm really stressed out, and I don't have it in me emotionally to be around other people right now. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. So that's my opinion. I didn't write any of the comments down because I'm sure they're all similar. But you just have to remember what your boundaries are and to stick to them when you're having issues with your mental health or whatever it is. That's my opinion. And I know the holidays can be really hard, so I hope all of you didn't have too rough of a holiday season. But I hope that if you did, you're taking some time for yourself and you're doing what you need and what's best for you and your mental health. Moving along, I did want to share one Am I the Asshole story for funsies, because I do love these. So this is kind of along the lines of one of the stories that I read in the Infertility ChildFree board. But this one has to do, I thought it was a perfect story of, has to do with telling someone to adopt on their fertility journey. So here's what I found. Am I the asshole for telling my sister to adopt a baby when I had my own biological kids? Strap in, baby. My sister is infertile. Both of us are in our 20s. I'm not. So she's not infertile is what she's saying. I had 3 biological kids. She doesn't have any, but is undergoing IVF for her first. She isn't asking our family to pay for it. She lives in a state where she has some insurance coverage, so money isn't the issue here. It's just more ethics. Eye roll. I told her that before she goes through with this, she really needs to seriously consider adoption. Yeah, I'm sure you did. No one says that before you have a biological kid. Why do people always go, oh, before you do fertility treatments, you should consider adoption? But if you can have children naturally, no one ever tells you that. She blew up at me, rightfully so. She said that almost every infertile person has considered adoption and they don't need to be reminded. She says she already looked into it, and although she doesn't care about passing on her specific genes, she wants more control over the child's health and custody, and doesn't want to deal with drug exposure, in utero, or biological relatives coming back into the picture. Edit, forgot to add, she said that the only children legally free for adoption already that don't cost $50K are older or disabled and often traumatized. I don't believe it. That's probably because you haven't done your research, lady. I feel like this is just not true. There are tons of healthy baby orphans out there nobody wants, like millions, and I've never heard of any bio family coming back into clean limb. Literally, again, no idea, but okay. It's also expensive, but even with her insurance coverage, I'm sure IVF is more expensive. No, it is not. Especially with insurance coverage. This lady has no idea. No idea whatsoever. But anyway. And there are literally orphans suffering all over the world while she needs to create a new one. Okay, same for you. You created a new one. I was just very upset to hear that she could be so selfish. Here we go with that word. She told me I, of all people, have no place to judge because none of my children are adopted and they're all biological. But I didn't need fertility treatments to have them. I didn't need to adopt, but yes, I do think she needs to look into it. She says she won't talk to me about this again until I adopt, and she specified that adopting an older child or disabled child are really the only free options that are unlikely to result in years of bioparental intervention and court cases. So if I adopt, I better be open to that. Now, if I could adopt, I would adopt as many children of as many ages/disability as I could. I would want to love them all and give them all a great home. But I already have 3 and can't support anyone else. Okay, I'm sure if you really would have done that, you wouldn't have had your own biological kids. This person is such a liar and a hypocrite, for one. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything, but I don't think she was right to get angry. Is it worth it to educate her further on adoption? She clearly doesn't know what she's talking about, and I'm very concerned for the orphans she's neglecting. Oh my god, I haven't even read this post through, but I am just... she's saying her sister, who has looked into adoption, is uneducated. This woman is uneducated. Please, I cannot wait to get into top comments. Let's go. Strap in, baby. Top comment, you're the asshole. Quote, she blew up at me. She said that almost every infertile person has considered adoption, and they don't need to be reminded. From my experience, she is totally 100% right. You didn't discover this one quick secret they don't want you to know. Quote, there are literally orphans suffering all over the world while she needs to create a new one. I was very upset to hear that she could be so selfish. She told me I, of all people, have no place to judge because none of my children are adopted. They're all biological. Again, she is 100% right. It's selfish to want to create a kid due to suffering, but totally not when you just did it. Please. Quote, she says she won't talk to me again about this. Sis is just killing it today with the correct moves. Quote, maybe I shouldn't have said anything. Well, you got one thing right. Quote, but I don't think she was right to get angry. Angry? Perhaps not. Annoyed at your lecturing? Absolutely. Quote, is it worth it to educate her further on adoption? Karen, are you serious? Quote, I'm very concerned for the orphans she's neglecting. Okay, this is a shit post. Even Karen isn't this obtuse. All right, let's move on to the next comment. You're the asshole. Adoption is hard. There are so many hoops to jump through, and potential adoptive parents can still spend thousands and thousands of dollars and still get their hearts broken when something falls through. Stay out of your sister's reproductive choices. OP then decides to reply, which is probably a mistake, but let's read. I'm not arguing with your judgment, but parenting is hard. I feel like if you're not willing to go through what adoption brings, you shouldn't be a parent. Then someone replies to them, well then walk the walk first, bucko. Like, this person is so... I don't know how you can't see through your hypocrisy. That she literally just said parenting is hard. You shouldn't be a parent if you're not willing to walk through the hoops. It's just, I don't know, their arguments only get dumber because then she responds to walk the walk first, bucko, with, first of all, they weren't all planned, and second of all, I didn't need to. It's only the people who try to do it through unnatural means who need to. If we forced everyone to adopt instead of give birth, the human race would die. Then someone says what I've been saying, you are a complete and utter hypocrite. If there are babies that your sister is neglecting, then you have also neglected them as well. As for the hyperbole regarding the human race dying out, well, that is simply nonsense. Ah, my God, I cannot with this woman. All right, let's go to the next comment, because she's replying to everyone, so this is just fun and a free-for-all for everybody. You're the asshole. You have no right to dictate how others go about having kids. The same argument could be made for you. Why'd you have 3 bio kids when there are kids who are ready to be born, who are already born, that needed a loving home? Even if you're coming from a good place, you still have no right. Edit, also you calling her selfish is unbelievable. She then responds with, I didn't need to. If I was infertile, I would have. Someone then responds, she doesn't need to adopt either. The IVF treatment is available to her. Someone also replies with, whoop-de-effing-do. If you were that bothered about orphans, you'd adopt instead of having 3 bio kids. Your sister says she's considered it and it's not for her. Let her make her own decisions and stop pushing your own frankly hypocritical agenda to her. Once again, I just think it's incredibly rude to tell someone that only because they have infertility, they should adopt. Adoption is open for everyone, but again, it's really difficult and it's not for everyone. Next comment. You're the asshole. Adoption is not easy. It's never free, and newborn babies are in the highest demand of adopters. You're the one that sounds uneducated, not her. Quit antagonizing your sister and try to have any amount of sympathy if you can't show her empathy. OP then replies, well, then she can adopt a teenager. I kind of think this person is just a troll at this point because, oh my God, you have no idea how difficult this is. And then someone finally says it. This has to be made up. You're the asshole either way. I'm ending the comments right there. I'm ending the post there. This one really got me riled up, and I really hope this was a troll post because I just can't believe how uneducated. It's funny reading that story right after we just read other people's experience with adoption or going forward with adoption and explaining why it's difficult. Hopefully this episode opens some people's eyes on the fact that adopting is not that easy and it's not for everybody. And it's changed. It's changed a lot in decades, I believe. Fertility treatments are actually a lot more affordable than adopting, unfortunately. And even then, that's still all very expensive. But anyways, I'm not shitting on adoption, by the way. Like, I have nothing against adoption. Where my problem lies is I have issues with people who think that it's just such an easy option and that it's for everyone, and invalidating people's real grief and struggle with infertility, as well as judging them and telling them that they're bad people for choosing to do fertility treatments. That is what I'm saying. I have nothing against adoption. If it were easier and not as time consuming and as expensive as it is, I'd highly consider it myself. I've got nothing against it. Unfortunately, after looking into it, it's not easy, and it's far more difficult. It's far more difficult than I would have ever assumed. So with that being said, please don't get it twisted. I think adoption is wonderful if it's right for you. That's all I'm saying, okay? Don't get it twisted. I still think that it's a wonderful thing to do. I just don't like when it's forced down people's throats only because they struggle with infertility. Let's end this episode on an advice segment. So I asked again this week on Infertile Millennial in my stories, what is some advice that you would like? Please do remember that this is just my own opinion. Form your own opinion. I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not a doctor. I am not your fertility specialist. This is just based off of experiences that I've had, so please form your own opinion. But the question that I thought was very fitting, since we're talking about the infertility board and choosing to be child-free, not by choice, doesn't really make sense, but choosing to move on without children and trying anymore. The question was when to move on, or how do you know when it's time to move on? So right now I'm in a position where, I think I've said this many times, I don't know what I'm going to do with the future. I don't know if I'm ever going to try to have children again. I don't know if we're just going to decide we're good without having kids and to live a life, child-free. We're in a position because I don't know what the answer is. And maybe it'll end up just kind of falling into place of we just spent so much time not knowing that we just naturally don't end up doing that. Or maybe the day will come where I'll know. But right now we're in a place where we don't know. So I'm really big on listening to my intuition. I feel like I'm very intuitive and I trust my gut. I listen to my gut, and I'm usually right at listening to my intuition. I know that doesn't come naturally to everybody. So if you're not good with that, I highly recommend starting to meditate daily and tuning into your mind and body more to help you connect better. So that could be just, setting aside time every day to do a little bit of breath work, to listen to a guided meditation, to listen to specific frequencies while doing some breathing exercises, eyes closed, mind-centered, light a candle, light some incense, whatever that may be, and just taking time to really connect with your breath and let your mind kind of be clear. The more you do that, there's studies to show that it helps you get a little bit more linked to your intuition and trust your gut and be able to really go inward and listen. Because I know when you're going through fertility treatments, it's really hard when you're so sucked in there and you're just doing whatever your doctors are telling you. But there becomes a point, I think, when it's not working that you start to feel like, I don't know what to do right now. And I feel like I've just been listening to whatever my doctors say and nothing's working and I need to take a break or put something on pause or take a step back and look at it from the outside, maybe speak with my partner more, things like that. Here's what happened with us. I know that I have different lines. When I don't have an immediate yes to something, then I need time to think about it and talk about it with my partner, especially through a big decision. So when I don't have an immediate resounding yes, then I do need to take a step back and think, what is my boundary? What is my line? What am I not willing to move forward with? What am I not willing to put myself through? So for us, number one, we always knew when it comes to IVF, we'll never do more than what insurance covers, just because we just don't want to do that financially. And number two, I feel so comfortable with my fertility team that I never sought out a second opinion because I never wanted to do that. I only have so many IVF treatments covered that I don't personally want to move on to another doctor to start from zero. I sort of knew that my boundary was always going to be, I'm only going to stay here because I'm very comfortable with them, and I'm only ever going to do as many treatments as is covered with insurance because that's what I feel comfortable with financially. And I understand everyone has different lines. You have to figure out, what is my hard stop line? What am I not going to do? So that's definitely super important. You have to determine. You also have to determine if you're letting fear make decisions. I know that's difficult. Again, listen to your intuition, listen to your fertility team, and make an educated decision based off of that. And yeah, again, you have to determine where you're going to draw the line. So for me, we're kind of at a crossroads of, do we do another round of IVF? Do we do IUI with sperm donor? We've been given the green light to do that. Or do we stop? And because we don't have an answer, we're just on pause. So I think it's really important to look within, talk to your partner, and both of you decide what are our boundaries? Where is that final finish line at? Knowing what you know from your doctor, speak with a therapist as well. But I think that's how you know when it's time to move on, is having discussions with your partner and knowing what your boundaries are. Getting clear on those are really important. So I hope that you're able to find your answer within yourself and with your fertility team and a therapist, and hopefully you're able to find the answer to that. And I hope that was helpful in some way. I think that it's time to end this episode here. So thank you so much for tuning in on another episode of Infertile Millennial. I hope you found this episode interesting. I thought it was interesting just because that's sort of where I'm at in my journey. But I think it's nice to know other people's perspective who've gone through infertility and are now on the side of, I'm not going to have kids and I'm either okay with it or I'm learning how to be okay with it or whatever. I just thought it was a nice perspective, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Leave a comment. It helps with the engagement and it helps push these videos to people who need to see them, who may not have known about them. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or wherever podcasts are streamed, share this with people. Leave a review for me. It's helpful. Anything like that. Anything that helps get this podcast out there, because there are people out there who are struggling, who don't know about this resource, and it would be great for them to hear about it, as well as people who need to be educated. This is a great episode to share with people in your life who need to be a little bit more educated on infertility, pregnancy loss, adoption, all of that. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.